Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm gonna continue on from where I left off in that last video. When it comes to installing the heads back on, there are three things that come to mind right now. First thing is to obviously make sure that the surface on the short end, on the short block part, that the surface is nice and smooth. Make sure there's no residue, whatever, and if there is, be very careful to scrape it off. Yeah, so it's pretty good on both sides. And then the second thing is the new head bolt, and it's really not advised to reuse them. And again, so you'll need 20 of these, 10 per each side. And then the third thing you'll need is new gaskets. So do not use the old ones. You'll need to use new head gaskets. There's different part numbers, so one's the driver's side, one's the passenger side. So do not order, say this one and order them twice, because even though it may look symmetrical, but these two gaskets are not shaped the same way. So as what I was talking about, that they're not, it looks symmetrical, but they're not. So this is cylinders 1 through 4. This is the passenger side here in the US. So obviously it fits perfectly. But now, just so I can show you guys a demonstration, let's go ahead onto the driver's side, cylinders 5 through 8. If I were to try to put this in, you can see it's not lining up at all. So the little dowels right here, those right there, see, they're not meshing in. And just for fun and giggles, if I were to put it upside down, which is not how it's supposed to go, like, it still doesn't line up. So pretty much the way that they design these gaskets, it's pretty much hard. You'd really have to try to your best to get these screwed up, put them on the wrong side, which is a good thing, because it's definitely, and see, and this fits right here, the dowels, little dowels that I use here, the little pins right here. So look, it lines perfectly. So like as mentioned, you can't really mess this part up. Now I got both gaskets on the driver's side and passenger side. So now is the head. So I'm going to do the driver's side first. So right now I have all the passenger side right there, everything that's driver's side right here, so I don't get the two mixed up. So just like the surface of the short block, you also want to do the, make sure the surface of the heads right here is nice and smooth. Scrape off anything that is, a little bulgy or not, or a little, if there's any type of residue, which there shouldn't be, because it's just the gasket. There shouldn't be any type of adhesive, nothing on here. It's just the gasket, and that makes the seal right here. Also another part, if it's not, obvious for anybody that these go on the inside of the engine, not on the outside, is the dowels. So on the driver's side, I'll show you, there's dowels right here and a dowel right here. But on the passenger side, you know how on the driver's side the dowel's up on top? But up on top, there's nothing. The dowel's here on the bottom and up here towards the rear of the engine. As far as like on the driver's side, it's on the bottom of the rear and not up on top like the driver's, like the passenger side. And also, a dead giveaway, you can see where the holes for the dowels are. And I'll show you. It is right here. And if you can see, it's not drilled all the way. It stops. That's a joke. If you've seen my last videos, this will make perfect sense as to what a great design this is. That's just a joke, just kidding. But yeah, so you can see how the holes for the dowels are not through holes. They're just holes. Again, bad joke. And I think I failed to mention this. There's really no right order to, if you want to do the driver's or passenger side. It's totally your preference. There's really doesn't matter which way they go, because they both gotta go on. So again, you really want to be careful with this, that you do not drop the heads while you're in the process, and do your best to line up the dowels where they go. And voila. So right now, because I don't have an actual engine stand to where I can like flip it on its side, so the full weight of the heads is like going down onto the engine. But right now, because the weight of it's still going down, but it's at an angle, right now what's holding this are just the dowels. So if you're doing the method that I'm doing right now without the engine stand, I recommend go ahead, get your new bolts and just go ahead and put them in so they can at least keep it in place. Because if I were to let go of this and just do other stuff, it's just those dowels that are holding it up right now. And I don't know how strong those dowels are, and I don't really want to chance it and find out. So it's recommended to go ahead, put your new, just to keep it in place. And again, you're gonna use a triple square M10 size fitting. I'm not gonna torque it right away. I'm just gonna go ahead, just, you know, do it by hand real quick. I guess I could use the drill. Let me get the drill out real quick. But let me just tighten at least this one just enough for it to be in place. And I'll just put one more up on top, just to be on the safe side, because the drill is from out of reach. That means I'll have to pretty much do everything I told you guys to not to do for me to do it. So make sure you have everything with you on hand when you do this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just do this by hand real quick, and I think that's enough. I'm just gonna give it a good little shake. Yeah, so that's definitely not going anywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the drill and just put them in first. I'm gonna do it in by hand, thread it by hand, and then I'll just use the drill just to quick get down to the bottom, and then I'll torque it. Do not torque it with the impact. One thing you want to do before you place all 20 head bolts in is to put lube on the thread. So you got two sections of thread. So you got this long section right here, and you have this short section right here. So you want to put it on towards the bottom, because as you're going down, you know, this is where the threads touch first, and then the grease will kind of work its way up. And then here it's a small little section, you know, I guess it doesn't really matter, but you know, just put on grease on this section. And the reason for that is, so obviously you have to torque this down in 4 sections, 30, 60, and then a 90-degree turn and another 90-degree turn. So you obviously, if you were to do it dry, if you do it at 30 Newton meters, it'll still be good. 60, you'll probably still be good. But when it comes to like the last two 90-degree turns, well, the thing is, if you're to run this dry, the last thing you want is for these bolts to lock on you, because you are going to be applying quite a bit of force, torque on them. The last thing you want to do is like for this thing to shear, because you will, even with the grease, you'll still get that, you know, that really cracking, locking sound, because you know you're torquing these quite a bit, especially with those last two 90-degree turns. And a quick tip when inserting this, so obviously put it all on one side, and you want the grease to be facing up, because if you insert it when it's facing this way, you're gonna run the chance of the grease coming off when it's rubbing against this. You want to face it up, and then you're gonna just kind of just let it, because see, if you see how it's not coming off the grease, I'm sorry, how the grease is not coming off the bolt. So that's what you want, because if you did it this way, it's going to be scraping this, and it's just going to be, you know, squeegeeing the grease off of this, you know, this side will be taking the grease off the bolt. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, so just like that. So yes, the grease facing up or north, and just drop in the bolt. Just a little quick tip. All right, so I have my impact now. So first I'm just gonna go ahead and thread all the bolts by hand first, and just to catch a few threads, because the last thing you want to happen is if you already go ahead and use the impact right away, you don't want to run the chance of cross threading it, because if you cross thread the block, that is another long story, and I really don't want to find out as to what would happen after that, because I don't think Alex will sponsor me another engine if I do cross thread the threads on the engine block. So gonna be safer than sorry, so just do it by hand. It may take a little extra time, but hey, I'm in no rush right now. I don't need this car to be running by tomorrow or anything like that. It would be nice, but it's not right now, realistically not gonna happen. So, but little by little, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that with all the threads, and I'll do the exact same process. Also gonna be the same thing for the passenger side heads. So real quick as to what I mean by go ahead and just using the drill. I'm not even doing it all the way down to a torque, so I'm just barely pushing on it until when it just stops, because I don't want to do that sound right there. So I don't know if you're able to hear it, but I don't want to have to do this. So I'm just going really slow. There, that's it. So that's where it bumps up. That's all I'm doing. So before I go on real quick, if you have the engine stand, and this is on an engine stand, and you can, flip the engine, vertically up, I think now will be a great time to go ahead and torque the heads down. But because I'm using, this method, the poor kid method, I guess, if you want to put it that way, I'm not going to torque it down, because when you torque it, you're going to have quite a bit of torque, and you don't want this to keep moving on you. So what I want to do is, the idea is to have the heads also installed on the passenger side, just like I did the driver's side, because then this gives me more weight on the engine, so the engine block doesn't, move. It'll probably still move, but it won't move as much when the engine is a lot lighter, because you are going to require quite a bit of torque for the cylinder head. So I'm going to go ahead, as mentioned, put on the block so I have more weight on the engine, and then once both heads are on, then I'll go ahead and torque the heads down. All right, so I have both the heads on now finally, and again, I just used on the passenger side just enough till it just bumped, and not before it starts doing that clicky sound with the impact, because I didn't want to put any torque just yet. So it's in there nice and firm, so now the bolts are holding the heads on and not just the dowels. So when it comes to torquing the heads, there's going to be 4 stages to torquing the heads. So the first stage is doing it 30 Newton meters. Second stage will be 10 to 60 Newton meters. The third stage is going to do a 90-degree turn. And then the fourth stage is going to be another 90-degree turn. And I'll actually post here on the screen if you like to visually see, what the manual says. So it's not just going off of just by my word, but just also you can see for yourself what the manual says. And also you can take a screenshot of it, whatever you want to do, so you can hold it for future references. Now it's time to do the first round of the torque. So it's going to be 30 Newton meters. And from the directions on the manual, it says you're going to torque 1 right here, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 over here. So here is 30 Newton meters, first round. I'm going to do the same thing over on the passenger side. Next is going to be now 60 Newton meters. And it's going to be the same order as the 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way up to 10. Same order. Alright, so did all 10 right here. Now I'm going to do the other 10 on the passenger side. Quick, when I did the first torque, which is this first bolt, with the torque wrench, that's when it was kind of doing that locking thing I was telling you guys about. So even with the grease, as mentioned, it'll still do the locking, but it won't do it as much as if I didn't put any grease. So because I was doing that, it was kind of like jumping on me, the torque wrench. So it was throwing off the degrees on the torque wrench. So even though I did start exactly, at 90 degrees, and I went straight, here. I knew I was at 90, but my torque meter, my torque wrench was telling me I was at 70 degrees, which I know that's not true, because all the jumping must have kind of just throw off the degrees. So with this situation now, I'm gonna resort to the breaker bar. Again, it's 90 degrees, so it's not that hard, to do. So back to it. All right, so I finished this side. So there are some bolts that were easy, didn't do that glocking sound. There are some that did give me that lock sound. So again, that's what the grease is. So the problem with that is maybe on those threads I didn't put enough grease, but now it's kind of too late to turn back. So I did all the first set of 90 degrees, and I'm going to the passenger side and finish the 90 degrees on that side. The first set of 90-degree turns have been all applied on the driver's side and the passenger side. So now is the fourth set of torque, which is also going to be another 90-degree turn. And again, it's going to be the same order again. And that will be the final torque spec for these heads. Now it's time to... Now I'm going to go ahead and install the cams and then the bearing caps. So this is the really important part, and I think I mentioned this before, but if not, I'll say it again. Take pictures before you remove things, because the bearing caps are placed all in a specific order, and that's how it should go. Because if you were to swap one over with the other, you can do some damage in the long run, and that's you don't want that to happen. Here. So right now, hopefully the camera can pick it up. So this one says A3, and this one right here says E3. So E3, so technically E3 goes right here. And I'm sorry, it goes like this. And the A3 goes like this. So if you look at them from the top point of view, they look exactly the same from an eye point of view, with the exception of, the numbering A3, E3, and then this one says 11 right here, and this one says 16. But overall, the dimensions look exactly the same from the top view. Let's look from this side view. It looks exactly the same. This other side view, it looks exactly the same. Let's go ahead and look at the side profile. Again, it looks like the same dimensions overall, but they're different, and that's key, because what makes it different is this part right here. This, for demonstration purposes, I just put the cams, the cams for the exhaust and cams for the intake portion, just to give a better illustration. So again, this is the E3. E3 goes right here. So as this is spinning, you can see this thing is going to be spinning, turning and whatnot. And it's molded, these bearing caps, like I said, they're molded to this. So if I were to, flip it or, get confused and put it over here, this does not fit or flush with the cam. So there's technically no way for you to get this wrong, honestly. So I think that's a pretty good design by Audi, is making these cams a slight different thickness. Overall dimension, or the diameter of this, is slightly thicker than this. So yeah, so see how that fits really flush? And if I were to, flip it around, that is not sitting flush at all. So one more example why it is important, then after that I'll be quiet with the whole, not getting things mixed up. So you can see on this side how, it's aligned. But when you look on this side, you can see on the top part, it's a little bit short. It doesn't make that complete circle. So again, I did give these heads a good clean. With that said, whatever assembly grease that was on here is pretty much mostly gone now. There's probably still a little bit of residue left. But now, before installing all of this stuff, it's recommended, and you need to actually, to lubricate everything again. So anything that has like moving parts, like this right here, just pretty much put engine assembly grease all on this right here. Anything that's going to be moving, like, I know it's not the prettiest looking job, but it does the job. The first one, again, doesn't matter which one you put in first. You got two sides. You got this side right here where it looks like there's a keyhole, and this side here where there is like a slot. So the ones with the slot goes towards the front of the engine, and the one with this side right here with that little keyhole looks like, it goes towards the back of the engine. So I just stated, the double bearing cap goes in the front, and the second double bearing cap that goes towards the rear side. So in the middle, there's 6 spots open. So there's going to be E2, E3, E4, A2, A3, A4. I almost forgot, before putting in all the screws, there's this one piece that is left, and this piece obviously doesn't need any lubrication because this is not a moving piece. This stays still, and that's going to go right here. So this is where E4 and A4 are. So when I took the picture, this is where I saw it. I'm going to put it back in its place where it belongs. So yes, and again, not to worry if you do it this way or this way, it's actually symmetric. So if you do it this way, it'll be the same as compared to this way, so it really doesn't matter. I just traveled into the future, and there's some steps I failed to mention on when it comes to installing the cams real quick. So real quick, so you can see I already have the timing component installed. But again, this is me in the future, and I failed to mention the retainer tool right here to keep the cams in the correct timing position. So the first thing I failed to mention is I do have the crank pin installed. So what I did is I lifted up the engine on a hoist, and I got underneath and put in the locking pin for the crankcase. Once the crankcase is in the locking position, you're gonna have two cylinders that are gonna be top dead center. So that's gonna be your cylinder number 2, which is on your passenger side, 8, which is on your driver's side. When inserting the cams, you wanna position the cams in a way so that this part right here is pretty much towards the top and not on the bottom. So once you have everything torqued down, you're gonna get a 24 millimeter wrench, and then this, you're gonna kind of wiggle it just enough so you can get the this tool right here slot into the slots right here. Other thing to watch out for, because remember how I told you this one, cylinder number 2 is top dead center. So the last thing you want to do is rotate this in a direction where the cams are going to be opening the intake or the exhaust valve. Because remember, that's, like I said, that piston's top dead center. And if you try to open up, push down on the valves to open, you're gonna be kissing the valves with that piston, with the top part of the piston. You don't want to do that. So you want to be careful and see which way these arms are so you can rotate them away from the rockers right here. So here is an illustration. Hopefully this will make sense of what I was trying to say. So here's your piston. You got your cylinder walls right here on the side. This red thing here is your valve. Here, this green is your bluish is your rocker arm. Here's your cam, and here's like a side view of, I guess, the front view of the cams where that slot goes in, where you put for the timing tool. So obviously, the top part, like I said, the little piece of part goes up away from the engine, and this thicker part of the cam will obviously face down towards the engine. This is an over-exaggerated example, so it's not really accurately like this. So say, you know how this has to be completely vertical up in respect to the heads. Well, say that if you do, need to turn it just a little bit to this way, well, by doing that, you're gonna rotate the cam this way. By this rotating, you're gonna push down onto the valve, and then you're going to force the piston to open, and you're going to be making contact with the piston. And if you keep on trying to, why is it getting stuck? Well, then that's because you're forcing the valve onto the piston. You do not want to do that. So in this scenario, the safer way to do it, even though you're so close to this, it's more safer to go ahead and rotate it the other way, which is going to take slightly longer, so that this is, rotating that way. I hope that makes sense. Again, this only corresponds to only the two pistons that are top dead center, which is cylinders number 2 and 8. The other cylinders does not matter, because the pistons, either down here, either down on the bottom, in between. So it doesn't matter if these valves get open, shut, because you won't be making contact with the piston. That's why it is important to, when you do put the cams back in, that you orientate the skinny part up towards the bottom, because once you do start torquing it down with the springs and how the cams are, it's going to automatically rotate on you. So you want to do your best to keep it, I have my kiddo with me, to keep the, this part facing towards you. Hopefully that makes sense. I have the bearing caps, the ones that correspond, like the E's up on top, A's on the bottom, going from 2, 3, and 4. And on this one I have the double bearing cap, and on the front part of the engine I have this double bearing cap right here. So I just put everything, screwed them in all by hand. They're not tightened up just yet. So what's going to happen is just kind of like the heads, there's going to be kind of in a similar way as well. So first, there's going to be 2 sets of torques. The first torque is going to be 5 Newton meters. and then the second set of torque is going to be 90-degree turn. So again, before I move on with tightening this, I want to post a screenshot up here in the screen so that you guys can see the instructions as well and not just take my word for it. After torquing down this bearing cap, this bearing cap, this bearing cap, and this bearing cap at 5 Newton meters, the remaining bearing cap, which is those middle ones, the ones at the end, here at the back part of the engine, the one on the front part of the engine, it says, as you read on the screenshot that I showed before, to start to torque them down to 5 Newton meters in a diagonal sequence. Now that all the bolts were screwed to 5 Newton meters, the next process is going to be the 90-degree turn, and just the same order that you did the 5 Newton meters is going to be the same thing with the 90-degree turn. So driver's side is now complete. I did all 90-degree turns on the bolt, and the process that I did on the driver's side is going to be pretty much 98% the same process as for the passenger side. The only difference is the bearing caps in the front are singles that look like this, and the ones on the rear are gonna look like the double bearing caps. So I have the passenger side set up, and I should have done this with the driver's side, but yeah, so on the rear part, this is where the timing goes. You have this double bearing cap, and again, this side right here faces towards the engine, and this side right here with the two holes right here, screw holes, faces towards the timing components. So here you have your 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, and this is your E's up on top, and which are your intakes, and then your A's on the bottom, which is your exhaust. From looking at this, there's two things that are different. Obviously, on the driver's side, the front bearing caps was a double, and these ones are 2 singles, and then there is only one of these, and on the passenger side there's 2 of these. And the reason why there's 2 is I have the underside of the valve cover right here, so you can see these holes right here. So this right here and this right here accommodates these right here, because on the driver's side it only goes to like right here. All this doesn't happen, and it only stops right here, so that's why there's only one on the driver's side. I didn't record this part when I was on the driver's side, but now I'm on the passenger side. Real quick, I just kind of want to show you guys. So right now I do have it set to 90 degrees. So right now I already did this, the E2, E4. Now I'm on A2, which is going to be the 90 degree. So I'll kind of show you guys. So I'm going to wait until I get, about 90. So right there, I'm at 0 degrees, and I'm going to start torquing it to 90 now. And obviously you can see the torque wrench going up as it's getting closer to 90. So there's 90. So at 90, it's about 18.67 Newton meters. So that's pretty much what I'm getting when it's fully torqued, about the 18 to 17 Newton meters. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna zero it out again. So I'm gonna do the same thing. And I'm going pretty slow. I'm not going super fast. And what do we get here? So 17.67 Newton meters. So yeah, so it's it ranges between 17, 18 Newton meters, the final torque spec. So I just want to show you guys that. Right, now I'm finally done. Got it all. The first one was 5 Newton meters, and then the second one was 90 degree turns, and having a digital torque wrench is definitely something really cool. So as I've showed you in the last clip, so I've been getting between like 17 to 18 Newton meters for that final 90 degree turn. One of them went up to almost 19 Newton meters, but the rest kind of stayed within that range from the 17 to 18 degrees Newton meters. And just because I have a digital torque wrench and I do have it at the angle setting, I still set it up, the digital torque wrench, as if I did not have a digital torque wrench. So what I mean by that is, when I started torquing that last 90 degrees turn, I didn't start at a weird angle like this. I started from right here and then worked my way to stop right here, and that's pretty much when it started, where it started beeping on me. So just, just an added proof. Don't don't want to say don't trust it. That is the end of this video. Hopefully you guys learned something new, and in the next video I'm gonna go ahead and start installing the timing component. So hope you guys enjoy this video and have a good one.